now that we know more about what complexity is, let's discuss how as a manager we can minimize or manage complexity. Well, according to the Bain & Company research on complexity in organizations, there are 6 steps which can be taken in any organization to minimize and manage bad complexity. The first step is to understand that bad complexity, and I mean understand it. And understanding bad complexity is important because a common mistake made by many managers, according to the Bain research, is that when managers first recognize complexity, they immediately try to avoid or fix it, the symptoms. And they don't do it before investigating more completely what's really going on. And that immediate action is a waste of time, especially when complexity symptoms they recognize are systemic or in the system. The operating model is broken, etc. In those kind of cases, smart managers should begin first by diagnosing the complexity and first ask, is the complexity imposed, inherent, designed, or unnecessary, and is it bad or good? The second step is to identify the origin of the complexity, but that can be challenging because the causes of complexity are difficult to identify and they're hidden in multiple places in an organization. And to deal with this complexity challenge, the manager should explore complexity across the organization, especially at the interfaces between activities and business units. And when doing that, they can identify multiple places that are negatively influenced by the complexity. The third step is to do with activities. And by activities, we mean that complexity reduction is really about activity reduction. So in order to reduce complexity, managers must eliminate activities that don't generate value. And they should do everything they can to identify duplication of activities in the organization. What activities are being done by many different people. But you must remember, activity duplication can be good complexity. And if you take it away, it can affect efficiency in the organization. By that may mean that any action taken can negatively impact the organization's efficiency. So duplication might in fact be a good form of complexity. And according to Bain & Company, it's also important to keep in mind the needs of the front line. This means managers should not just roll out some off-the-shelf generic solution for fixing complexity, which is good for everyone but not great for anyone. Managers should always remember to follow the complexity reduction philosophy. Do less, do it better, do it only once, and do it in the right places. Please remember that philosophy it will be very important for you in your career as a manager. The fourth step to minimize complexity is to remember that the complexity reduction process must be driven from the top of the organization, and I emphasize here the top. The organizational leadership must be committed to reducing complexity because only then can we change the way of working in the organization. And what this means is that leadership must change their own behavior because if they don't do that, nothing will happen. This point on leadership commitment and changing behavior is very important because employees always know when their behavior is expected to change, but not the behavior of the leaders. So for any complexity reduction program to succeed, it's essential that managers and leaders make sure that they have identified and documented the root causes of the complexity, defined a few actions to address the complexity exactly and continually, and more importantly, leaders and managers must define the rewards, show a commitment, and encourage people as much as possible to change. Creating a better working environment for all or achieving better results for the organization as a whole, and those rewards also need to be measured and monitored. The fifth step in the complexity reduction program is the Achilles heel or the weak point in the process. And that weak point is implementation, or how you're going to make it happen. And implementation is important because smart managers might have identified that complexity, the causes of that complexity, but the solution for removing it might still fail. And now you might be wondering, why would it fail? If they identified it and figure out how to deal with it. Well, it will fail because more often than not, management doesn't agree with the frontline people on what needs to be done. And remember, frontline is important, up to 80% of the workforce who are interacting with the customers. And because of this frontline operations problem, and that they continue to operate in the same way, nothing will happen. So please remember the front line. To remove complexity, management must also identify all the risks and to consider ways to avoid those risks in the organization. And avoiding risks can be best achieved by defining the necessary actions which address each of those risks. And now the sixth and final step identified by Bain to reduce complexity is culture. As a matter of fact, this final step of changing the behaviors and mindsets of people is the biggest challenge in every complexity reduction program, and we're going to discuss that next.